Love has always carried within it a mystery that stretches beyond reason. We are drawn to faces, gestures, and voices not merely because of who they are, but because of what they awaken within us. Often, what we believe to be love is, in truth, the reflection of our own hidden longings, wounds, and unmet desires projected onto another. The wrong person becomes magnetic because they embody something we have lost or never fully claimed in ourselves. In this way, relationships become mirrors, showing us not only the beauty of connection, but also the shadows of our unconscious. We do not fall for the wrong person by accident. We fall because some part of our soul is reaching out, seeking completion, even if it is through pain. The danger lies in mistaking this projection for truth, in clinging to an illusion rather than seeing the reality before us. Yet within this struggle lies an opportunity. By becoming aware of our patterns, by daring to confront the hidden forces shaping our choices, we begin the journey from blindness to sight, from illusion to authenticity. True love is not born of projection but of recognition, seeing the other not as a vessel for our unhealed parts, but as a whole being in their own right. To walk this path requires courage, for it demands that we first face ourselves. Only then can we choose love, not as a repetition of old wounds, but as a conscious act of freedom and truth. The mirror of desire is one of the most profound, yet hidden forces in human relationships. When we meet someone and feel that sudden spark of attraction, it is easy to believe that we are seeing them for who they truly are. Yet, often what we are drawn to is not the reality of the person standing before us, but the reflection of something deep within ourselves. We cast our longings, our insecurities, our forgotten dreams, and our unhealed wounds onto another human being, and in that moment, they become a mirror for our inner world. This is why love can feel so overwhelming, so intoxicating, and at times, so blinding. It is not only them we are seeing, but fragments of ourselves that we have either ignored or longed for without knowing it. Desire itself is rarely rational. It rises from the unconscious, carrying with it echoes of childhood, the patterns of our past, and the shadows of all we have not faced. We may be drawn to someone who carries the traits of a parent, both the comforting and the painful ones. We may see in another the strength we lack, or the softness we suppress within ourselves. The beloved becomes a canvas upon which we paint the unspoken colors of our soul. What feels like destiny is often the pull of our own psyche, seeking completion, seeking healing, or seeking familiarity, even if that familiarity is rooted in suffering. This is why so many people fall again and again into the arms of the wrong person, because the projection feels like home, even when it hurts. To awaken to this truth is not to dismiss love, but to see it more clearly. When we recognize the mirror of desire, we begin to question why we are drawn to certain people. We start to ask what within us is being reflected back. If we feel an overwhelming admiration for someone's confidence, perhaps it is pointing to the confidence we have not nurtured within ourselves. If we feel an irresistible pull towards someone's woundedness, perhaps it speaks to the wounds we have never tended in our own heart. In this way, every attraction becomes a guide, a message, a clue to the deeper truths of our inner life. Love then transforms from a blind impulse into a journey of self-discovery. The task before us is not to abandon desire, for it is a natural and vital force, but to strip away the illusion that another can complete us simply by being who we imagine them to be. True love begins when we stop projecting and start perceiving. It grows when we honor the other not as a vessel of our own unfinished story, but as a unique being with their own depths, their own wounds, their own light. To love in this way is to step out of illusion and into truth. It requires courage, because it forces us to confront the hidden corners of our own soul. Yet this courage is the very doorway through which real intimacy is born, where two people meet not as mirrors of longing, but as companions in the shared adventure of becoming whole. There are moments in life when what we call love is nothing more than a chase after shadows. We meet someone, and suddenly a light is ignited within us, a light that feels like destiny itself. Yet so often that light is not born of true recognition, but of illusion. a projection of our inner hunger onto another. We believe we have found the missing piece of our soul, but in truth, we are captivated by an image of our own making, a reflection shaped by memory, by longing, by wounds we have never fully healed. In this pursuit, the beloved is less a real person than a screen upon which our unconscious plays its hidden films, and we, blinded by passion, mistake those illusions for the essence of love. This is why love can feel so intoxicating at first, so overwhelming in its force. We do not merely see the other, we see the embodiment of our dreams, our ideals, our unspoken needs. The intensity is real, but it is not grounded in reality. It is like grasping at smoke, chasing shadows across the walls of our own psyche. The more we cling to this illusion, the more fragile it becomes, because the person we have imagined cannot hold the weight of our expectations. They will eventually reveal themselves as human, imperfect, complex, and when that happens, disillusionment crashes over us like a storm. What once felt divine turns to disappointment, not because love itself has failed, but because what we were chasing was never love at all, only the echo of our own desires. The tragedy is that many remain trapped in this cycle. They fall for the wrong person again and again, unable to see that what draws them is not truth, but repetition. They are pulled by the familiar pain of old wounds, drawn unconsciously towards situations that mirror their unresolved past. A person who grew up feeling unseen may chase after partners who remain distant, mistaking the ache of longing for the thrill of passion. A person who felt unworthy of love may be drawn to those who withhold affection, repeating the silent battle to earn what should be freely given. In these patterns, illusion disguises itself as fate, and the soul is left chasing shadows. Yet, within this struggle lies a hidden gift. The shadows we chase are not meaningless. They point to the deepest truths of our inner life. They reveal what we have lost, what we have buried, and what we still long to reclaim within ourselves. The illusion is painful, but it can become a teacher if we have the courage to look deeper. When we stop asking another to complete us and instead begin the work of facing our own emptiness, we take the first step toward freedom. We no longer chase the phantom of love, we begin to cultivate the reality of it. Real love does not blind, it awakens. It does not demand that another fill our void, but it invites two whole beings to walk side by side, not in the realm of shadows, but in the clear light of truth. The cycle of familiar pain is one of the most powerful and perplexing forces in the human heart. Again and again, we find ourselves drawn into relationships that echo the wounds of our past, even when those relationships bring us suffering. It is as if some unseen hand guides us back into the same patterns, the same disappointments, the same heartbreaks, and we wonder why we repeat what hurts us. The truth is that the psyche is always seeking completion, always trying to resolve what has remained unresolved. We are pulled toward what is familiar, even if that familiarity is filled with pain, because it feels like home to the unconscious mind. When a child grows up in an environment where love is inconsistent, where affection is mixed with rejection, where presence is shadowed by absence, the child learns to equate love with uncertainty. Later in life, without realizing it, they may be drawn to partners who offer the same instability, not because it brings happiness, but because it resonates with the imprint left long ago. In this way, the heart repeats its own history, hoping that this time the story will end differently, hoping that this time the wound will finally be healed. Yet instead of healing, the cycle often deepens the injury, until the person begins to believe that suffering is the only form of love they deserve. The repetition of toxic patterns is not simply weakness or foolishness. It is the unconscious attempting to bring unresolved pain into consciousness. Every relationship becomes a stage upon which the dramas of our past are replayed, giving us another chance to recognize what lies beneath. The partner who withdraws may awaken the memory of a distant parent. The partner who criticizes may echo the voice of old authority figures. The partner who abandons may stir the original wound of being left alone. Each repetition is both a trap and a message, an invitation to awaken to what we have not yet faced within ourselves. To break the cycle requires courage, because it means turning inward rather than outward. It demands that we stop blaming fate, stop blaming others, and begin to ask why we are drawn to what wounds us. It requires us to confront the shadow within, the parts of ourselves we have rejected, the fears we have buried, the worth we have forgotten. When we begin to see the pattern, when we name it, when we acknowledge the pain not as destiny, but as a repetition of the past, we create the possibility of choice. We no longer have to act out the same script. We can write a new one. Freedom from the cycle of familiar pain comes when we no longer seek in others what only we can give ourselves. When we cultivate self-respect, self-love, and inner wholeness, we are no longer magnetized by those who mirror our wounds. Instead, we are drawn to those who resonate with our healing. Love then shifts from being a battlefield of old injuries to being a ground of growth and authenticity. To end the cycle is not to abandon love, but to enter it with eyes open, with a heart healed enough to recognize that true love does not repeat the pain of the past. It creates the possibility of a new future. Awakening to truth in love is one of the most difficult and transformative journeys a human being can take. So often, what we believe to be love is tangled in projection, the unconscious act of placing our inner desires, fears, and wounds onto another person. We fall under the spell of an image, convinced that the other is the source of our salvation, when in reality they are reflecting back parts of ourselves that we have not yet fully claimed. To awaken from this illusion is painful, for it requires us to let go of fantasies and confront reality. Yet it is in this confrontation that the possibility of genuine love is born. Real love does not come from filling an emptiness through another person, nor from demanding that someone else embody the qualities we have denied within ourselves. It comes from seeing clearly, from recognizing the other as they are, not as the screen upon which we project our unconscious longings. This awakening often begins with disappointment, when the illusion fades and the person we thought we knew reveals their humanity. What feels like betrayal is often a gift, because it breaks the spell of projection and invites us into truth. We are forced to ask ourselves whether we loved the person or the dream we placed upon them. And in this question lies the doorway to a deeper, more authentic connection. To recognize real love beyond projection, one must first face oneself. The hunger that drives projection is the hunger of the inner world, the unacknowledged parts of the soul calling out for attention. When we see that our intense attraction to strength, beauty, or tenderness in another is pointing us toward the neglected strength, beauty, or tenderness within ourselves, we begin to understand that love's first task is inner reconciliation. Only then can we meet another not as a missing half, but as a whole being who complements rather than completes us. This shift turns love from dependency into partnership, from illusion into truth. Awakening to truth also means embracing the imperfections of both ourselves and others. Real love is not the worship of an ideal, but the acceptance of a human soul with flaws, contradictions, and shadows. It is the courage to stand in the light of another's truth without turning away, and the humility to allow them to see our own. When projection falls away, what remains is not as intoxicating as fantasy, but it is far more enduring. It is steady, it is real, and it invites both partners to grow rather than to escape into illusions. In this space, intimacy becomes the meeting of two journeys rather than the collision of unmet needs. The awakening is never once and for all, for projection creeps in silently, again and again. But each time we recognize it, each time we withdraw the illusion and return to reality, we strengthen our capacity for genuine connection. Love beyond projection is not the death of desire, but the birth of authenticity. It is the place where two people can stand side by side, not blinded by fantasy, but illuminated by truth, creating together a bond that is both liberating and deeply human. From illusion to freedom is the path every soul must eventually walk if it wishes to experience love in its truest form. In the beginning, love often appears as a dream, a dazzling fantasy that sweeps us into a world where the other seems to hold the key to our happiness. We fall into the illusion because it speaks to the deepest places of our longing. Those hidden corners of the psyche where unmet needs and forgotten desires dwell. The beloved becomes the embodiment of what we lack, and for a time, we are convinced that they are the answer to the emptiness within. Yet illusions, no matter how intoxicating, cannot endure. Sooner or later, the image shatters, and we are left face to face with both the reality of the other and the reality of ourselves. The breaking of illusion can feel like despair, but it is also the first opening toward freedom. To see clearly is painful, because it forces us to confront the fact that what we called love may have been a projection of our own inner world. Yet this confrontation holds within it the seed of transformation. When we choose to step beyond fantasy, we are no longer enslaved by the unconscious compulsion to chase what can never truly satisfy us. Instead, we turn inward, recognizing that the qualities we sought in another must first be awakened within ourselves. The strength, tenderness, or security we hope to find in the arms of another can only take root when we cultivate them in the soil of our own being. Choosing growth over fantasy means accepting responsibility for the patterns that have guided our choices. It means asking why we are repeatedly drawn to those who cannot give us what we need, why we cling to relationships that mirror old wounds, why we confuse intensity with intimacy. The answers are not easy, for they require us to face the shadow, the rejected, denied, and forgotten parts of who we are. Yet in this confrontation lies liberation. By integrating the shadow, by embracing the fullness of our inner life, we free ourselves from the endless repetition of toxic patterns. We no longer seek salvation in illusion, because we understand that true love cannot be born from self. Deception. Freedom in love is not the absence of desire, but the clarity of it. It is the recognition that love is not about completing one another, but about walking together as whole beings. Growth replaces fantasy when we learn to see the other not as an idealized image, but as a real, complex human soul. This kind of love is less dramatic, but infinitely more profound, for it is built on truth rather than illusion. It allows space for imperfection, for vulnerability, for the slow unfolding of genuine intimacy. It asks us to bring our authentic selves to the relationship, rather than a mask shaped by longing and fear. To move from illusion to freedom is to reclaim power over our own hearts. It is to step out of the cycle of projection and into the reality of conscious choice. Love then becomes not a trap of fantasy, but a path of transformation, where two people grow not by escaping themselves through each other, but by meeting one another with open eyes and awakened souls, building a union grounded not in dreams, but in truth. Every journey through love is, at its core, a journey back to the self. Falling for illusions, repeating painful patterns, and mistaking shadows for truth are not failures but lessons, each carrying within them a mirror of our own inner world. What matters is not that we stumble, but that we awaken. When we dare to see clearly, when we choose growth instead of fantasy, we step into a love that is not built on projection but on truth. This love is not fleeting. It does not blind or deceive, but it liberates. It allows us to meet another as they truly are, while standing firmly in who we are becoming. To end the cycle of illusion is to reclaim freedom, to open the door to relationships that nurture rather than drain, to build bonds that awaken rather than imprison. In choosing this path, we are not only transforming love, we are transforming ourselves, creating space for a future where connection is rooted in authenticity, courage, and the light of awakened souls.